everybody. Has everyone settled down? Has everyone had a lovely lunch? Thank you very much, Santos and his team, for cooking us all up those lovely beans. Hello, my name is Jo Ralling. My name's Jo Ralling, and I'm head of campaigns at the Food Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, the Food Foundation is a sister organisation to VegPower. We've done a lot of campaigns over the years, a lot with VegPower. I've done a lot with Dan personally, and a lot of you, I think, have been involved with Peas Please as well, which was a 3-year campaign that we ran at the Food Foundation. And a lot of businesses and companies signed up, and that was all aimed at getting more vegetables into the food system. But as we know, and the original National Food Strategy highlighted, there were 4 keys that we needed to unlock in order to get to a sustainable future in food: fibre, fruit and veg, meat consumption, and we need to reduce the amount of HFSS foods we talk. Is anyone else getting an echo on this apart from me? Yeah. I will carry on talking loudly until someone brings me another mic. Sorry. Hello? No, that's not. Okay, I'm just going to shout. Hello, hello?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that better?
It is.
Great, okay. So we were looking at what we could do. The Food Foundation was thinking, what can we do? We want to do a campaign, and we want to focus on, meat, fibre, that area. And we suddenly realised a couple of years ago, well, we've got a little superhuman in the room, haven't we? Super food. The humble bean, good for humans and good for the planet. Just for clarification, when I talk about beans, I'm actually talking about beans, legumes, peas, pulses, etc. But we're using the term beans to collect it all together because that's much easier for the general public, and this is going to be a public-facing campaign as well as working with lots of different businesses and organisations. So why? Well, we know that beans emit a lot less greenhouse gases, but they're also great. They fix nitrogen in the soil, and they use a lot less fertilizers. But we also know that currently only 4% of people in the UK have enough fibre, and beans are a fantastic source of fibre. Oh, that slide went a bit loopy, didn't it? That slide should show you that meat has very little fibre, and beans, just 1 portion or half can of beans can actually provide a huge amount of your daily uptake of fibre. So we started focusing on how can we do more. The other thing that we know is that they're cheap, and with the soaring current food prices, that's a big deal for families. If we could actually position these so that, this was a cheaper option for families, that was going to be another huge bonus. I meant to be staying between these lines, sorry. And they're culturally accessible. I mean, beans are eaten all over the world, all the different fantastic recipes, Mexican, Indian dals, they're already eaten, so we thought this is a really amazing opportunity. Despite all these great things about beans, consumption has been decreasing since the 80s. I mean, we need to reverse this situation. We're seeing a little bit of uptake in the last year or so, but actually it's been a downward swoop. So I'm absolutely delighted to say that the Food Foundation has, along with our partners, been given a 3-year grant by the National Lottery Community Fund, and we're going to be running a big beans campaign. VegPower is one of our major partners, but we're also linking up with Beans is How, and some of you may be aware of Beans is How. They've been doing a global campaign with beans, and we're sort of becoming the UK delivery arm of that campaign, if you like. So I'm going to give you a bit of a run through of the things we're hoping to achieve. This is the very beginning of the campaign. We're at ground zero, so we've got 3 years ahead of us. So the idea, we decided that we're going to focus a lot of the campaign on 18 to 35-year-olds. The reason really is that that's young families. It's families, and we can reach a lot of people through that age group. We've set ourselves a target of doubling the national bean consumption. Now, on one level, it is quite low at the moment, so we should be able to do that, but that's our absolute minimum target, to double the national bean consumption. And how are we going to do that? Well, we are going to be creating a big digital campaign. We're going to be working with ARC Agency, who you'll be hearing from soon, who are going to be creating a concept, a beanie social media campaign, which we're hoping will lots and lots of chefs and influencers and members of the general public and businesses will be able to come up and come behind. We are going to be working with a lot of food businesses, and I hope an awful lot of people in this room will be signing up to the commitments framework that we will be starting and launching. We've already started a lot of conversations with people, but anyone who we haven't spoken to yet, please get in contact. But the idea is that we're going to be encouraging people to serve more beans, get more beans on the menu, include more beans, procure more beans, whatever your business is, there'll be a way of you getting involved in the campaign. We're going to be working with a lot of different organisations, from youth organisations to the YHA. I've had conversations with the National Trust. I've been speaking to leisure brands. I mean, as many different organisations as we can across the country to get everybody very focused on putting beans higher on the menu or including beans in their products. And then obviously we'll be gathering all that together, and we will be sharing all the insights and the learnings we have through our monitoring and evaluation with policymakers, so that they can use and hopefully grow the work with what we do in government policy. We're also going to be focusing. These slides are going very weird. Anyway, that's meant to be a bit bigger, sorry. We're also going to be focusing on low-income groups, because we have a special interest in that. And that is connected with the cost of living crisis, and we know that an awful lot of families are struggling. So we're going to be doing some targeted work with low-income groups. VegPower are going to be running a national schools programme. Now, we know that VegPower can do schools, right? Eat Them to Defeat Them has been a huge success, and we know that if we take fun and colourful things into schools, it can have huge impact. So we're signing up, to begin with, we're signing up 750 schools, of which about half of those will be in low income areas, and we're going to be creating fantastic wall charts and all the things that VegPower is so brilliant at, and hopefully some of that will filter through to home. We saw that happen with Eat Them to Defeat Them, and I think it will happen with beans. We're working closely with the University of Kent. 50% of the students on that campus report food insecurity. I mean, it's quite staggering how hard it is for students. So we're working with the university, and we're going to be, we're already changing the food in the canteens. We're going to be running the campaign across the campus. The students are going to be creating some assets for us for social media and for use around their own campus. And then whatever that model that we create out of the University of Kent, we're hoping that we'll be able to roll out over other universities, because get them at that age, you've got them for life. And the other thing is we have a long-standing relationship with the City of Birmingham, so we will be going back to Birmingham and working with Birmingham right across all the food businesses and food outlets there with the Baked Beans campaign. So obviously these are targeted place-based pilots, but we're hoping that we'll be able to expand them over the next 3 years. So we are really excited. Now, it's all starting and launching on the 5th of November. We're having a Beans Summit at the Barbican. You're very welcome to sign up and come if you would like to. And that's the day we will be launching the social media campaign, and the schools programme is starting a couple of days before that. So we're going to start flooding the market, which we are very pleased about. So sorry, I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to shut up. But if you wish to find out more, please come and see me or Rebecca over there. I am available for hire for children's parties, obviously, as well. Rebecca, who heads up our business team, is also here. So if you'd like to find out more, please get in touch with us. But let's do it. Let's start this bean revolution together.
Sorry, excuse me. Where do you put the clicker? Here it is. Oh, round the back there. We have been, yes, I remember where I'm starting now. Sorry, I wrote the last part of this presentation last night, so I can barely remember what it is. So anything could happen, frankly, if I'm honest with you. We have had to hunt very far and wide to find something that's so extraordinarily rare that ultimately what we had to do was to go and create it ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the first time you've ever seen this, and it may shock you. This is a child eating beans that aren't baked. Shutterstock just doesn't have such a thing as a child eating beans that aren't baked. That's what we want to see an awful lot more of. Now, as Joe has mentioned, we're going to be doing a schools programme. We're not going to really give very much away other than this little graphic. So it's called the Big Bean Boost, and it will be coming out in November. Hopefully we'll have the best part about 250,000 kids taking part in mostly low-income schools. That's as much as we're prepared to give away. We have the absolutely brilliant Helen, who's here somewhere, who's been waving amazing, creative, magic silliness on all of this. And it's going to be an absolutely, truly wonderful programme for the kids, where we're sort of taking the view we want them to. This year, it's about trying beans. Next year, it's about exploring beans. And the year after that, it's about loving beans. So we're taking them on a bit of a journey. We have been trying over the last year or so to pull together some proper consumer insight on beans, which we didn't. Our evidence review didn't find an awful lot of it. You might find an awful lot about consumption volumes, but there was a very little amount of kind of why type questions that we wanted to know the answer to. So we've done 3 different surveys. We've done lots of looking for evidence. We spent hours talking to people, talking to caterers, sitting in rooms, scratching our heads to try and understand what's going on with beans. And we have some consumer insight. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be, because we're building up towards the 5th of November, we're going to be releasing bits of consumer insight, some other nuggets on social media, particularly LinkedIn, during the course of the next 6-7 weeks or so. Rather than sort of putting big fat reports out there, we want to create little kind of conversation points. But I'm going to share some of those with you today. I think when we think about how we approach beans is, I think like rice, right? We don't want to create a food fad. Right, there's a lot of food fads that come and go, and an exciting campaign, and suddenly everybody's doing that, and then, you know, before you know it, you're the souffle of the 70s, right? The one thing I'm looking at is rice, and actually Joe's here from Tilda. I told you rice we're going to mention at some point there, Joe. Is rice. Is that my mum, lots of you have heard me say this already, my mum, who's 87 now, she probably went through 1 bag of rice a year, right? Where in our household, we go through 1 bag of rice, or in truth, probably pouches, in something like a month. And what has happened over a long period of time is that rice has become part of British food culture, just like a potato, and it's here to stay. We need to take beans on a similar journey. We need beans to become absolutely a core part of British food culture in the way it's part of food culture in so many other countries around the world. So this is no quick and no small task. We've been trying to figure out bean consumption, lots of different views and approaches that will end up in the same place, which is quite, well, it's encouraging the fact that it's universally awful. DEFRA reported at some point that it was 32 grams of beans a week per person. That's like, what, less than 1/10 of a tin. NDNS survey, which was done by Laura, who's here somewhere, she calculated 28 grams a week. We looked at some hardcore retail sales data, the actual data over a sort of 3 or 4 year period, and we calculated that 1.63 million units of non-baked beans had been sold, worth about £147 million, which equates down to a broadly similar figure to those figures. So the bottom line is, what the maths tell us is people aren't eating many beans. Allow me to explain this bit, and I'm told I'm not allowed to step out these 2 white lines, which I feel quite restricted by in order to be on the feed there. This is a bit like an adoption curve. So anybody who's worked in tech is going to know about adopter curves, and beans is a very, very similar pattern. So what we have typically at the sharp end of the early adopter curve is actually where you find people like Hugh and chefs and people who inspire other people with their brilliant, clever, creative ideas. And then you then move into people who are really into their food, which is probably a lot of people in this room, the foodies, the people who like to cook, who like to experiment with different things and be bold and show off and enjoy it and be inspired. And that takes us through to a group of people who are quite sort of into their beans. We call them the keen beans, right? They are eating something like 2 or more lots of beans, so having beans twice or more a week, excluding baked beans, right? Now then, as we move through the market, we see this middle group. And this big group in the middle are the people who are infrequent but regular bean eaters. They're not anti-bean, right? They just don't really get around to having them. And they're very repertoire cooks. They're habitual. They believe in scratch cooking. They scratch cook often, but they do the same thing every Tuesday night and the same thing every Wednesday night. And they have about 6 meals that they rotate through because they have other things where their brain needs to be. And that is a massive, great part of kind of that kind of early middle part. And if we look at that group, what we see is there's an awful lot of people who are having beans once a month or maybe once a week. And again, it's very traditional and habitual. So yes, of course I have beans in the chili con carne, absolutely, you do. Beans in the shepherd's pie, you must be absolutely mad, right? And this is the group that perhaps we can, oh, didn't mean to do that, sorry. That we can move. Then obviously towards the back end, we have those people who only have beans occasionally during the course of the year, maybe a few times, and the people who says, I will never eat a bean for as long as I live, right? What we need to do is we need to focus on this second, the green group, right? If we can turn this group into, if we can work beans into their habitual repertoire style cooking patterns, then they just will start to normalise the fact that things like lasagna has beans in it, shepherd's pie has beans in it, a stag bowl has beans in it. All sorts of dishes can start to have beans in them. And that's how we normalise it. And once we normalise it through the kind of aspirational channel into that group, you start getting the back end of the adoption curve, begin to see this activity as kind of normal and the thing they should be doing. So we need to focus very much on this group. Hang on, excuse me, my glasses on so I can know what to say next. Okay, so what was going to motivate these people? Now, we had a really close look at this particular group of people calling mean beans, as in average kind of bean eaters. And overwhelmingly, they know that beans are good for you, 86%. But we have seen all over the place with food this kind of difference of this intention behaviour gap, or perhaps more precisely, the sentiment behaviour gap. So there was a report recently from Eat Balanced people that said 61% of people are willing to eat less meat. But in truth, the amount of people eating meat 5 times a week has gone up from 43% to 50%, right? And this is a story all over that we see across the whole food system, is we have to be very careful of questions that say people who are willing to make a change, because there's always a huge difference between people who say they're going to do it and the people who are actually going to do it. And we know that health and planet and animal welfare and these things do not mobilise change at any like a significant level. When we talk to these groups, what they talk about is taste. What they talk about is convenience. It takes too much effort to make beans taste great. They talk about the fact they don't cook them because their kids don't like them. And we start getting into really practical things, but not really against beans. It's just that beans are very firmly at the back of the cupboard. I mean, everybody's got tin of beans at the back of their cupboard, right? We need to bring that tin of beans from the back of the cupboard to the front of the cupboard. So this is kind of the challenge we're looking at. So we've got a fabulous panel now. I'm going to hand over to Hugh, and we're going to be discussing how do we crack this? How do we get people eating more beans?
Thank you very much, Dan. Could I please invite our panel up to the front? And we are going to need at least 2 mics. There's 2 more here. These seem to be the dodgy ones. Is this one got the echo on it? Yes. So these 2 mics are the naughty ones. So we might be sharing one mic. This one is not on, or it is on? On-ish.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I think we've got 3 mics. I'll give one to you.
Yeah.
Right, we've got 2. Yeah, we're good to go. As we get into this topic, it's delightful to know that pretty much everyone in the room is now full of beans. And we had a fantastic demonstration of just how easy it is to make beans delicious in the context of one of the nation's favourite dishes, the shepherd's pie. And whether you had the meaty one, or the veggie one, or the vegan one, or the gluten-free one, you had a lot of beans. So that's good news. However, we do know from what Dan has said that we've got to shift the dial a long way. And we've got to be smart about how we do it. And the smart people are sitting to my right. And they are going to tell us how they think we can make this happen. So I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves, tell them where they stand in the bean firmament, and then we'll go from there. So if I could start at the far end of the panel with Una. Can you tell us, Una, who you are and where you sit with beans?
I'm feeling like I'm sitting at the end, actually, very much at the end here, so I'll have to move my seat in a second. But I'm Una Turnbull. I'm Head of Health and Sustainable Diets Campaigns at Tesco. I am personally passionate about beans, but I'm also delighted to be joined by a number of colleagues from Tesco today who are equally passionate about beans, actually. So please do put their hands up, but there's Sue and Natasha and Kate also here. So one of many people at Tesco who are passionate about beans.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm a nutritionist for Chartwells, so one of the catering companies. I am equally passionate about beans and I'm very excited about this movement.
Hello, my name is Matt Goff. I am the founder of ARC Agency, and we have recently come on board to help launch a campaign to get everybody eating more beans in a former life. I helped bring Eat Them to Defeat Them into the world creatively and strategically, so I'm a big fan of getting other people to eat things, and also a big fan of beans.
Hi everyone, I'm Beth. I'm actually filling in for Amelia. I work at the Bold Bean Co, and I know there's a few Bold Bean fans here today, but anyone who doesn't know, we're a premium jarred bean company. And at Bold Bean, I'm a beanologist, so I do think I've got the coolest job title there is. But I look after all our insights and category and work a lot with all the supermarkets to help grow the bean category.
Well, we've got to start with our beanologist, obviously, Beth. Just tell us a little bit about the success of Bold Beans, what the idea was, and how you've, certainly with your brand, moved the dial.
Yeah, amazing. So we've been going for about 4 years now. Amelia founded the company when she actually was in Spain. She thought she didn't like beans. She tried an heirloom bean out there and discovered that beans could actually be totally delicious. She realised that actually the issue in the UK is mainly that people eat a tinned chickpea, which can be like a bit of a bullet if it's not cooked very well. And actually realised that if you bring these really delicious beans, it can really change people's perceptions. So we started the Bold Bean Company. In the first year, Amelia entered all the products for Great Taste Awards because she thought, is this going to work? We need people to know it's delicious. So the whole range got a Great Taste Award in year one, which really helped. From there, Amelia went on to Dragon's Den, got loads of awareness for the brand, and ultimately what we're starting to see is when people hear about us, try Bold Bean, they absolutely fall in love. And I think that perception of a bit of a bullet chickpea completely goes out the window as they realise how delicious a chickpea can actually be. So we're now in nearly all the supermarkets, which has been incredible, and actually being in all these stores means that more people are able to find us, try us. And what we see is that lots of new people are coming into the category, lots of new people are eating beans. And as a brand, we're helping shift what people thought wasn't very exciting into something that actually is exciting. But as a brand, we have totally come from the taste angle rather than trying to sell something. So Amelia started with Beanspo on Instagram, and we put new recipes for beans up every single week. We've got a best-selling cookbook and then another one coming out in October, and what we try and do is really show people that beans can be eaten in loads of new different ways. So we're not saying to put Bold Bean in your chili con carne, we're making new products. So our Beanotto, if anyone hasn't tried it, is like a risotto but with beans, and it's much quicker to make and super delicious, and making loads of new occasions. So we basically are inspiring people, showing them the beans are delicious, and off the back of that have had amazing successes. People find us and tell all their friends and family.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to come back to you on the issue of bean hierarchy, because you are a premium product, and I think a lot of it is also about texture, isn't it? You work very hard on making your beans very tender, which makes them easier to eat. But before we come back to that, which I promise we will, I'd just like to ask Sam, as a nutritionist and a caterer who is mainly delivering into schools, Chartwell, how common are beans on school menus now? What's the sort of bean? What do you see as the bean barriers? And are you already underway on shifting the dial with beans in your business? And how are you going for that? So just rolling it all on from that key question. How are you doing it?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few things there. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So firstly, the menus. So our menus are twice a year, and we do have a main option and a veggie option, and one day we have a veggie option. And you will see beans on our menu at least twice a week, and that's rolling throughout the year. We do work closely with our culinary team, and we're very fortunate to be able to do that. So we can work with them to can't think of the word now, but like change the recipes and include different things. So we are currently around 2 a week on our current menus. The fortunate thing we have with Chartwells is that we are closely linked to our supply chain. And that means that we can work with our suppliers and we can look at changing what they're giving us. So we are currently working with a supplier to change the burger from being beef to 50-50, so using white beans and beef, and looking to put that on the menu. So there are areas where we can work with the suppliers, and it's a great opportunity that we have. I think the main barrier for us is a lot of the recipes we have, the beans are hidden in the recipe because it supports those children to take them. They're not seeing them, it's not changing the texture, but it's adding it in without them noticing. And what we really want to see is putting beans at the forefront. I think you mentioned it earlier, Dan, so it's not this hidden ingredient. Actually, they're powerhouses and we want to see them being used. So how can we join the children where they're at on their journey and encourage them to use and eat these amazing powerhouses without it being hidden. On that topic, we do have an education program. It's called Beyond the Chartwells Kitchen, and it's been running for 12 years. In the past couple of years, it's changed to completely plant-based, and the team get out into schools and educate the pupils in these different areas. So the curriculum has changed, and there is a focus on beans. We support around 100,000 pupils every year, and this is the main way we can reach children and help them change their minds and give them the information and ask them to try these new foods that they're not used to.
I'm really glad you mentioned the hiding the beans or the hiding the lentils issue, because it's actually come up in quite a lot of conversation over lunch today in the context of the veg generally, which is the hidey policy. A lot of people in the room, a lot of people I've spoken to, I suspect this is gaining traction. The hide the veg, or indeed the hide the beans policy, many people's feeling is quite flawed, in that if you hide, if you're hiding it, sooner or later you're going to get caught. And at that point, it's like, well, we didn't really want you to know. And then it's like, well, why didn't, or what is it about these things that we have to hide or don't, or shouldn't know about? And why do we have to do this by stealth? And I think this is actually really quite an important question. And I'd just like to backfill the whole veg conversation with that as well. We've got to be upfront about the joy and the pleasure of all the veg we want people to eat. And beans is no exception. So really, really glad that you said that. Una, supermarkets selling more beans. I mean, is this something that, from what we were hearing from Sam at Chartwells, this is something that they are fully focused on. They have a plan, they've got a kind of allocate, we've got 2, we're going further, it's going up. How is it for you at Tesco? How determined are you to sell more beans, and what are you doing to sell more beans?
We're equally determined to sell more beans, actually. We don't see the beans category, pulses category, as any different to any other element of what we're trying to do on health and sustainable diets, in that we're ambitious. You know, we were one of the first retailers to set a target for health and sustainable diet sales of 65% by 2025, and we're well on track for that. So it's something that's really at the centre, actually, of our plans, of our strategic plans and our commercial plans. Because, I mean, let's all face it, we want to have a healthier society, and we recognise the role we've got to play. So it's important to us, but really excitingly from our perspective is that what we're finding is that the beans are actually getting much more attractive to our customers. About 2/3 of Tesco customers buy into the category now, which is great. We've got really sustained growth across many elements of the category, actually, particularly the high volume lines like kidney beans, butter beans, chickpeas, you know, so people are buying into this, and there's lots of different reasons for that, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, but what we're learning is that you can build it and they'll come. And that's why, actually, to be honest, you know, it's brilliant to be here today and to hear this enthusiasm, but it will also be amazing to see how we can take this beans campaign forward. But this matters. It matters to our business.
Just picking up on what you said, and to get clarity, I think you said that you implied you weren't necessarily singling out the category outside of healthy food generally. Do you recognise or think that actually beans do have a kind of character? They are a bit of a special case. I mean, we certainly feel they are worth, not just worth the focus of this panel, but worth a huge focus of our attention. For all the reasons that Joe outlined at the beginning, there's such a great opportunity to deliver both on health and on planet, on the sustainability of the way that they're farmed. Is there a case for actually taking beans as a special case for Tesco and really going to work on them, not just in sync with everything else, but because of the opportunity?
To be honest, we're passionate about them all. You know, all the categories within, our whole produce and our fruit and veg area are important to us. Yeah, and beans particularly. Actually, what has really helped us with this is really exciting MPD. So what we're always looking for are new and exciting lines and new and exciting ways to talk to customers about good food. And certainly with the beans, we've seen that. I mean, obviously Beth has just talked about what Bold Beans has done to the market, but there are others as well, Merchant Gourmet and Baloo and others, and our own brand lines are really important in this area as well. So we are focusing on it. I mean, we've just done a really successful, actually, 5 a day campaign, which has been all about kind of going back to basics, and obviously the pulses are a part of your 5 a day. How can we talk to our customers across our stores, online, wherever they are on social and so on, about the importance of good diet through lots of different content narratives, basically, including beans.
It's worth mentioning, it's no mean feat to have on the panel representative of our biggest retailer, one of the biggest suppliers of school food in the whole of the UK, and the leading exciting new brand in the world of beans. So those insights are great, and you're all playing a role. But as we heard from Dan, the graph isn't really going up yet. I mean, maybe in the short term, you've got sales figures that are showing it on the rise. The medium-term trend, there's a little bit of an uplift, which perhaps reflects exactly the work that's happening with all three of you. But let me come to you, Matt, because you're looking at this as a nationwide story. You don't really mind necessarily who's going to buy and eat the beans, but you want to see that curve really fly up, and your skill set is to find exciting ways to get everybody talking about beans, everybody cooking beans, particularly in mind that category of people who eat a few, they're open to them, back of the cupboard, how do we get them to the front? What are you looking to find? What touchstones do you think could set this whole thing off? And how does it sit with you that a campaign, it's different from meet them to defeat them, isn't it?
It's different, for sure. I won't lie, my hand did sort of hesitate when I saw the phone ring. And it was Joe and Dan. I thought, well, last time they rang, they asked if we could get kids eating more vegetables. And I thought, well, that's about as hard as it gets in my line of work. But they said we're sitting next to ITV, and I was like, okay, great. No, I think I can help if we have ITV. Anyway, the phone rang, and I answered it, and they said, what about adults eating more beans? And I thought, oh, fuck, is that harder than kids eating veg? Certainly right up there. And I said, it's okay, though, because we've got ITV, haven't they? He's like, no, we don't have ITV. I was like, Christ, I've already answered it now, so I'm kind of in. And everything you read, everything you see, and everybody in this space will say that beans are having a moment. And I sort of go, yeah, they're having a moment with people like this in this sort of room and these kinds of conversations. But when you look at that graph, beans aren't having a moment where we need them to have a moment, which is on plates and around dinner tables in families up and down the country. So it is a big and significant creative undertaking for us to try and get everybody to notice that. And, if you keep reading through the papers at the weekend, eventually you'll get to page 74 of the food section and you will see that beans are having a moment. But our job really is to take them from the back of the food section and get them on the front pages so that more people are talking about it and more people get to oversee the quality of these, the power of these, the benefits of beans. But it's a big and significant undertaking. The place that we always start is, what do real people actually think and what are real people actually doing? This is bold beans aside, and a couple of the others, this is a pretty boring category. It's a pretty boring aisle in the supermarket. If you look at the meals, top 10 home-cooked meals in the UK, one of them contains beans. That's chili con carne. In Spain and France, 3 of the top 10 meals contain beans. People know what to do with beans. They're not frightened of them. They're not sort of in awe of them. They're not at the back of the cupboard, whereas we've got tins of beans which are, you know, you can't even see them.
From the previous century.
Quite often from the previous century, you know, packaged in a way they're all made to look the same. They all sort of taste the same. It's really, really boring. And so that is a hell of a job to get from conversations like this into Tuesday at 5 o'clock. How am I going to get away with putting some beans into this meal, which is a meal I know how to cook. I cook it all the time and everybody eats it, and there's no risk if I serve it. Suddenly I'm going to add something else and hope that effort doesn't go to waste. So it's a big job. You've got to get into the mindset of those people and find ways to give them confidence and permission to add what should be really tasty stuff into making a meal healthier and that's better for the planet. So, you know, I'm not here to talk about the benefits of it, but we've got to get into that headspace and get people to see it. Then you've got to start thinking creatively, right, who and what do we have on side? When you've got ITV, you have an opportunity to talk to large groups of people at once. We don't have that opportunity here, so we've got to go, where can we go and speak to people? And, you know, this is always about recruiting an army to some degree. With Eat Them to Defeat Them, oddly, we chose to recruit the kids. Normally, kids are told what to do when it comes to vegetables. And in Eat Them to Defeat Them, we said, no, let's talk directly to the kids. Let's get them on side. Let's get them having some agency in this and taking part in this. And I think what is exciting this time is that there is an army. There are a lot of people talking about beans, whether you're into gut health or whether you're into fiber or whether you're a protein bro. If you go into social media, there are lots of people talking about the benefits of beans. We've got to create something that allows everybody to see their agenda being answered by beans and make it interesting and make it exciting and take on all of the other you know, people spending loads and loads of advertising money on their food categories and take them on and make it interesting.
You mentioned the boringness and the blandness of beans, which actually, from a cook's point of view, is what makes them such an amazing ingredient, because they are the friend. You know, they take up everything else you put around them. But there is a problem there. I mean, they're not chocolate, they're not ice cream, and they don't even have the colour of fresh vegetables. And I'd like everyone to have a think about this, but I'll continue with you for a minute, Matt, if I may. In Eat Them to Defeat Them, we did make the veg the heroes, albeit the anti-heroes, the villains, if you like. But we went all about their characters and their personalities. What you've mentioned so far is that this is possibly going to be principally about the benefits, the simplicity. There might be some cost savings, etc. So the pragmatism, that it's all a lot easier than you might think, and by the way, it's going to be delicious. Is there an opportunity to also give the bean a personality, or maybe not necessarily just by making it into a cartoon character, but actually making people feel there is power in that little thing, or those many different things that come in different shapes and sizes, and we want to harness that power?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the bean is not, the bean should be all about storytelling. Every single one of us knows that Jack was given 3 magic beans. Like, there is magic around this substance that lots of other foodstuffs don't have, and that is a story that we haven't, you know, magic and a power that we haven't unlocked. If Dyson invented beans now, we'd all be like, Christ, thank God someone's here to come to save the planet. This is someone's done something incredibly special. So we've got to add some storytelling, add some magic. It's all there in each of us to know that beans are a good, powerful, magic thing. If they were invented now, we think they were brilliant. So that's exactly what we've got to bring. Some character, some personality, bring what advertising does best to a category or a product and get out there and talk about it.
Beth, obviously you've had to do that too. You want the bean to be a hero, not just a handy ingredient. You've got very smart branding. You've got the kind of upmarket appeal of the glass jars. You've gone, as you say, for taste and texture and tenderness. What about bean personality? Is that something you're focused on expressing in the brand and in your socials and in the way you go about talking about beans?
Yeah, I mean, Amelia's now arrived, so I can't say anything too rogue about our marketing plans. But totally. And I think, well, one thing that we have going live in October is a brand refresh, which is much more colourful. I'm probably having a few spoilers here, but much bolder, which is very on brand, making it leap off the shelves to people, because we know actually when you're shopping down the aisle particularly, a row of tins isn't particularly exciting. So we're trying to bring a bit more energy and personality to that space. And I think in terms of the personality and what you were saying around telling people about the magic, I think what we typically find with people who are buying into our products is they're maybe in that section we were looking at earlier where they know that beans are good for them, but actually it's the challenge that they don't think they're very tasty. And actually I think where we play more of a role of a brand isn't about educating people that they're full of fibre, they're full of protein, they're one of your 5 a day. It's actually in saying, you already know that, but also they are delicious, and therefore you will want to eat these. It's not, you're not eating them because you feel like you should, and I think that's where we play a bit of a different role in terms of our brand.
If we get our bean campaign right, Matt, and we have our launch on the in November, hopefully your bean ambitions, Sam and Una, will just be given an immediate boost by that. But I wonder, Una, what you think about this idea of rebranding the bean. I mean, there is a convention of a fairly simple tin with a picture of a almost like it's a picture, but it's almost like you're looking into the tin of beans, and this is what they look like when you get inside, and they look like beans. Do you think that everyone needs to add this sort of colour and energy across the board, and would you be moved to rethink the branding of beans off the back of what everyone else is doing here?
To be honest, I think our role is less about looking at beans per se, as I mentioned earlier on, and much more just how can we generally, with healthy food, and beans now in particular, make the category just exciting, relevant and inspiring and accessible, and somewhere that we want our customers to go, and actually that they want to go to and cook for their families. And I think what is wonderful, I mentioned before, and with Amelia and with others in the market, they're doing that work for us. Our role is to pick that up and then to run with it. So, for example, I mentioned before we had a 5 a day campaign. A massive part of that was gamification, actually, with Club Card challenges. Was when we're talking about the food that we sell, how do we access customers in a different way where we can make it exciting for them to access different categories, possibly that they haven't done so before. So our Club Card challenges have been a real success, and we bring customers into that world by obviously making the food that we sell look amazing, look absolutely fantastic, and that's not just actually online on Club Card, but generally in store as well. So yeah, I think it's not something that we have to work too hard to do, because whilst you described quite a miserable can of beans there, I think actually the category is quite changing around us. And I think there's something really good just about basic beans that we should just embrace and go with.
Sam, Matt outlined that we're probably going after the adults, the cooks in the family first and foremost, whereas we went after the kids with eat them to defeat them. You're feeding kids. Do you think that therefore that you have to generate some of that excitement and young-minded enthusiasm for the bean itself, and that maybe there's a take-home for that too, and that that can meet what we're doing for the parents as well?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely need an injection of fun there. We do have some superfood hero characters situated around our primary menu, so it is something that we can look at incorporating. And also, as I mentioned before, the Beyond the Chartwell's Kitchen, our education program brings that to life in the classroom. So it's that side of things that can make it more engaging and more fun. But also what you touched on before was the suppliers are making it exciting. We have a category buyer specifically for beans and pulses, and it's their job to find a niche in the market. So whether that's something that the children can recognise, a brand that they can recognise, or something that makes it fun and exciting. So there's both sides there, where the supplier and then our side in terms of the education piece, bringing it together along with the menu and the characters that we utilise, making it fun and exciting.
Matt, we went a long way with characters in Eat Them to Defeat Them. And do you think that we would be wise in this context also to think about games and materials and that kind of world, or are we just looking at something like bigger picture to just get the word out and the feeling out?
I think games and characters and all that is good for the kids. I'm not sure that's going to help us with adults when they're standing in that aisle or when they're standing at the kitchen and they've got meals to make. I think people have got to have confidence and feel permission to put beans into their food, and we got that's a bigger challenge. It's fabulous to turn up in the school playground and see people with their stickers and their wall charts, and it happens, and it's true, and it's wonderful to see that happen. But this is a bigger, harder challenge than that.
And I think we need to be thinking a bit beyond the adding beans scenario, not just for the reasons around hiding, and that feels a little bit duplicitous. We know there's a new barrier. We know there's a barrier to cross to get people to try new recipes. But if there's an opportunity to get people to try new recipes that are incredibly easy and really good and colourful because they have things in them other than beans, then maybe there's some easy wins there that are not just about the pimping of existing recipes with beans, if you like. We've got a few minutes left for questions and indeed thoughts. I mean, this is a knotty topic. Matt knows that he's got a really hard brief here. He's having sleepless nights. We're speaking to him on Monday. Anyone got any advice or input here? What do we think are the key things? Yes, we've got a hand up over here. Sorry you've got the dodgy mic.
My name's Catherine Lip. I'm the early years nutritionist at Nursery Kitchen. So I work in early years nutrition. And fantastic. We're very much behind the whole positivity around beans. And I think one key thing that's probably not been focused on so much in this panel is getting to those children early. We know those early years are when those food habits are set. That's one thing to their eating habits. And what we try to do at Nursery Kitchen, and indeed push with families as well, is really exposure to beans in a fun way, not hiding them. And that nursing setting is a really key place to do it, because as long as you have the communication and you have the educators on board as well, that language and that role modelling that happens, the parents pick up their kids and can't believe that they've eaten a bean risotto or these bean hot pots, which they would never have at home. So there's a real opportunity in the early years. You can get them before they get to school. So actually, when they're in school, you don't have to hide them.
I'm totally with you on that, and I think that we know from Taste Ed, who like to work with kids as early as possible in school, that if we change habits young, they can become habits for life. But we are still talking, it's the parents who's going to buy the beans, right? But the parents need, part of the knowledge or confidence that you mentioned, Matt, the power that we need to offer over to them is the idea that this is a food for all their kids of any age, and that it's a meal problem solving food as well. Thank you very much for that. We've got one over here, and then you were on our panel this time last year. You're going to join us here as well with a comment or a question. Let's start here.
Thank you. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, especially if you hold it really close.
Ali, so I'm here to talk about apples, actually, but I'm sitting here listening to you. Matt, I think you need to be brave. Nobody's mentioned farting, and I think you could have a lot of fun by facing head-on what everybody's thinking but nobody's saying. And I wonder if there's a bit of a faff strategy. They're not a faff, they're really simple. But faff allows you to talk about flavour, affordability and farting. Have fun.
Thank you very much. We like that. I think one thing worth mentioning is that one of our thoughts for the Bean campaign is that it's never going to be too prescriptive, or that we've got the only tagline or we've got the only good way of talking. And because we don't have ITV, but we have
all the social media where people talk to each other all the time. We want people to do their own thing, and if we don't do faff, will you promise that you will throw faff into the mix and invite our new army of bean lovers to run with it? Because we'd really like you to do that. Can we just something? Just give us faff one. No, flavour, affordability, and fun.
Sorry, just
So, I mean, have you got a question? No, you're...
Oh, no, I've got...
What I mean is...
Sorry.
Right, so, yes.
I was just going to say that bravery is a really important thing. Like, if we're not prepared to ruffle a few feathers, nobody will notice what we say or do, and we won't shift those charts. So, like, much like with Eating to Defeat Them, there were quite a lot of people, some of whom I'm sure in this room, who were like, you can't do that, you can't make vegetables evil, you know, and can't present them in that way. But everybody that VegPower did a lot of work to try and reassure a lot of people, and then, you know, from the stats that we've seen this morning, I think that's a campaign that worked, and that's only because a lot of people went, no, hold on a minute, we've got to try something different.
So provocative is going to be right in the mix. Yes, please.
I was hoping to get in after Stephanie talked about cautious, but I'm so glad to come after flatulence instead. A theme that I hear running through this day and looking at this panel, particularly seeing, you know, Tesco on the panel, particularly thinking about, I'm Andy Gold from Newham Council, and we're very, very big into universal meals and whole school approach to food. A C word that is just running through this day, time and time again, is this idea of confidence. And talking to people at lunchtime, maybe if we take one thing away as a group today, people in this movement, whatever this whole thing is that we come together, there is a moment here, isn't there, where we are talking in effect about our national culinary confidence. At a time when we're probably talking about our national confidence, aren't we, in a big way, when we all feel a bit strange. If I hear one thing again and again that we should all feel confident about, is there is a moment here, isn't there? There is something about feeling as, for example, parents, as schools able to talk to our parents, as councils able to talk to our schools. Nobody perhaps changes the way we think about food more than a walk around a big Tesco. You know, my local Tesco is a place where you walk, you see, you cannot leave without seeing new things. And I say that as a foodie, and I'm not ashamed to say that, you know, the presumption that we're all shopping in boutique markets all the time. But if I just have one comment and one thing to take away, and I think, yeah, I see nodding on the panel, if we all have a think about that as a piece of direction, it's a big thing for us over in Newham. Kathy and Amy spend a lot of their time thinking about it. And yeah, really a thought, but it keeps coming back. I've heard it said 12 times today, I reckon.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if we don't bestow confidence, Una, what would you like to say about that?
I was just going to say, thank you for calling out Tesco there. I would, you know, I have to say that obviously, but what I would say, we're all in this together, actually. We've got a role to play. Everybody on this panel's got a role to play. You're absolutely right, it is about confidence. You're just stood behind, actually, Amelia, who, I mean, you should come up, actually, because you've flown all the way in from Barcelona, I understand, to be here. Well, maybe you don't want to come up, but that's a lady that has shown us all, actually, what it can mean to bring a kind of different conversation to a category that wasn't particularly confident. You know, even the way you described the tin of beans earlier on, you know, let's think about it a bit differently. Beans can be really sexy, they can be really fun, they can be exciting, they can be inspiring, they can make you fart, they can do whatever they want, you know, or you want them to do. But what we want to do, certainly at Tesco, is just kind of normalise the conversation. But we can't do that alone. So it's fantastic, actually, and you know, and obviously other retailers are available. But we really, really need everybody to get behind it. So the campaign is really good, what you're doing, because, you know, fundamentally it's not just one sector's problem, is it? It's the whole food system that needs to change.
Could you pass the mic up? Because I'd ask Beth, well, she could have mine. Beth, I think we are genuinely grateful that Bold Bee Company has made this impact and is having this pull-up effect around beans. And one thing you have done that's just come across the room is you have given a lot of people the confidence to cook with beans. And I just wonder if there's anything that you'd like to throw into what we're trying to do that you think we should focus on, especially given that we do want to universalize, we want everyone to feel involved, that everything's very accessible, that they can pull a good old-fashioned tin of beans off the shelf and get some great results, as well as your beautiful flavoured and textured beans. What do you think gets to the heart of giving people confidence about beans?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I think what we actually find with a lot of our recipes that we do is that a lot of the simple ones do really well, and a lot of the ones with cheese do really well. So I think what we...
That's a good insight.
Yeah, anything that has some cheese on there absolutely flies and gets a lot more traction. And I think probably what we're seeing is that you don't need to overcomplicate it. For us, we have a beautiful ingredient that is very simple to use, but actually any kind of chickpea, you can chuck it into a curry that you're making with a curry sauce. You can do lots of things to it, and I think it's about making it delicious and easy and approachable, and actually a lot of those quick wins. So if it is a weeknight dinner, actually people have a recipe that they can make in 15-20 minutes. Even though we make delicious beans, not all of our recipes are complicated, and even as a more premium ingredient, we know that simplicity wins. So I think keep it simple.
So there does need to be recipe focus, a bit of hand holding, and it sounds like there are two things happening here. We're not just putting beans into things, and if we are, it's going a lot beyond the bolognese. We're putting them into soups and stews and curries, where they've always belonged in the cultures that create those dishes. We're also putting things into beans to make them very quickly super appetizing, whether it's some herbs or some chopped onions or a tin of tuna or whatever it might be, to rustle up something super quick. So it's going both ways, beans into things and things into beans. I think we're done. Thank you so much for joining us for this very exciting moment in the history and trajectory of the bean in British food culture. We are super excited. Please join us in our excitement and do everything you can to help us build the bean. Thank you so much.
Right. Remember the 5th of November. This is when it's all coming together. Now, we don't have ITV. You've heard this a few times today. We don't have a big TV advertising campaign. So what we've got to do is we have to build a big movement for beans. To build a big movement for beans, I'm going to ask you guys to do 3 things. The first is, if you head to the VegPower website, you can sign up to become part of this bean force. What are we calling ourselves? But become part of this movement. Get your email in there, and that means you're going to be the first to find out about all the things we're doing over the next 3 years and the ways that what we're doing and how you can get involved. This isn't about VegPower, about the Food Foundation. We are just the people who's bringing people together. Second thing, over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks before the 5th of November, we're going to be posting loads of stuff up on social media, particularly on things like LinkedIn, in sort of stakeholder conversations about why we want people to get on board with beans. There's going to be loads of people talking about the nutrition element and the planetary element and the cost element and the taste element and the greatness of beans, and they're going to be coming out with this hashtag, which is a message we want to send out to everybody, is get on board with beans. It's all going to launch on the 5th of November. What you need to do now is get on board, become part of this movement. Let's all work together. So please get out there, show your support, use that on board with beans hashtag. And the third thing is this. If everybody in this room and all the organisations we represent decide that we are going to change the story about beans in this country, it will happen. It's just that simple. There's enough power in this room to make that happen. So the question I would ask all of you, whatever you do after this, say, is what am I going to do to make this happen, to get people eating more beans? And if you're a business, which many of you are, then you want to talk to Rebecca Toby, which she's over there in the corner, but most of you know her, as she's going to be sort of dealing with businesses about the things they're going to do. But really, frankly, it's down to us. If we all come together and we all kind of try and work together as one kind of unit, we can make this bean story like a really exciting event. So thank you very much. Could I ask you, now Hugh unfortunately has got to go, which the bad news means that I'm chairing the next session. So you get more than me than was expected, but I would be very grateful if you could all show your appreciation for the way that Hugh has chaired this session today and for his support he always gives us. I would say now there's like 5 minutes to perhaps grab a quick comfort break, and then we are going to reconvene in 5 minutes' time to talk about the exciting issue of social media. And could our speakers for that session come